Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. When I first moved to Edelton, I was just looking for silence. A quiet town to write in, one where the loudest noise was the wind through the cornfields and the occasional train whistle echoing from 20 miles away. It was supposed to be peaceful. But this town had a kind of silence that felt watched. Edelton was small, maybe 60 houses total, one diner, a post office, and a liquor store that closed by 7. No one locked their doors, not out of safety, but out of something closer to resignation, like they believed nothing could stop what might come in anyway. It was about my 3rd week there when I noticed something strange. Every evening, just before sundown, people would draw their curtains. The same time, every day, 6:37 p.m., not a minute before, not a minute after. On the 4th day, I asked the cashier at the diner about it. His name tag read, Dale. He just blinked, wiped his hands on a rag, and said, "Best to be inside by then." That's when he walks the road. Who? I asked, but he'd already turned away. That night, I stayed up and watched from the front window. At exactly 6:37, I saw someone walking down the dirt road by the edge of the cornfield, just outside the town limits. A tall figure, no flashlight, no car, just walking. I watched him for maybe 30 seconds before he stopped mid-stride. Then, slowly, deliberately, he turned his head toward my house. He didn't move, just stared. There was no way he could have seen me. The curtains were mostly drawn, just a narrow slit between them. But I swear, he smiled. The next morning, I found muddy footprints on my front porch. Only they didn't lead up to the door. They led away from it, as if someone had stood there all night, watching, waiting. The footprints were still damp when I found them, pressed into the wood of the porch like someone had stood barefoot in mud and then never wiped it off. Only, it hadn't rained in Edelton for 4 days. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I even tell? The sheriff's office didn't open until noon and was closed by 4. And from what I'd gathered, no one in Edelton really talked about him, like naming him made him stronger. But that night, I couldn't help myself. I set an alarm for 6:30 p.m. and made coffee like I was preparing for a storm. At 6:37 on the dot, he came again, walking from the cornfield road, same pace, same direction, same long black coat. This time, I opened the window a crack. No sound, not even his steps on gravel. But as he passed, I swear I heard it. A low, dragging sound like something scraping behind him. Then he stopped, again, and turned. Only this time, I saw his face. It was wrong, like melted candle wax wrong. Not burned, just unfinished. Like a child had sculpted a face in clay and forgotten the finer details. His mouth stretched too far, no lips, and worst of all, no eyes. Just 2 empty, wrinkled hollows, as if something had scooped them out long ago. He lifted one hand, slowly, and pointed at me. The lights in my house went out instantly. I slammed the window shut, heart pounding in my ears. I couldn't even scream. Something in my chest refused to let me. Like I was prey and instinct told me silence was my only hope. When the lights flickered back on, I waited another hour before daring to move. Then I opened the front door. The footprints were back, but this time, there were 2 sets, and one of them was mine. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor of my hallway, holding a kitchen knife and a flashlight with dying batteries, convinced I wasn't alone in the house anymore. The second set of footprints, mine, led from the porch across the living room and stopped right beneath the window where I had stood. Only I hadn't stepped outside. I couldn't explain it. I hadn't left the house. I was certain. By morning, the footprints had dried into a dark, flaky stain, like dried blood or rot, but still unmistakably shaped like feet. I packed a bag, locked the door, and drove straight to the library on Main. Edelton's archives dated back to the early 1900s, and if this thing, this man, was part of the town's unspoken history, I needed to know. It didn't take long. Old newspaper clippings called him the Grainfield Walker, A figure that had appeared every few decades, always in the same black coat, always at twilight. People reported vanishing children, hollowed-out livestock, and in one particularly horrifying case, a farmer who carved out his own eyes and walked into the cornfield, never to be seen again. Every article ended the same way. The town would stop reporting. No arrests, no bodies, just silence, just like now. I felt sick. I was next. I knew it deep in my gut, like how a person can sense they're being watched even when no one's there. That night, I went to the cornfield road and waited. He came, same pace, same coat. But this time, he wasn't alone. There were others behind him, half seen in the dimming light. People with missing eyes, broken limbs, blank faces, all walking in single file behind him like obedient ghosts. And they were coming straight toward me. I turned to run, but I slipped. When I looked back, the man was standing over me. He knelt, and in a voice that sounded like wind through dry husks, he said, "You looked, and now you walk." I woke up this morning in my bed. I thought it was just a nightmare until I looked outside. There's a new set of footprints in the gravel. They start at my front porch and lead toward the cornfield. I never meant to stay in Baxter Hollow. It was just a pit stop, one of those nameless, quiet towns off a back road somewhere in Missouri. My car overheated, the engine coughed, and then nothing. I barely made it to a gas station on the edge of town. "Mechanic's out till Monday," said the old guy behind the counter. He handed me a bottle of water and a key to a guest room behind the station. "Ain't much here, but it's clean. Just don't mess with the drains." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. The room was basic. Single bed, brown carpeting, rotary fan in the window. The bathroom smelled of rust and old bleach. I ran the sink just to check the water, and something thick and black came out first. It slithered away before the water ran clear. Gross, but not my problem. I'd sleep, call the mechanic, and leave. That night, I woke to a gurgling sound, like something moving through pipes that hadn't seen water in years. I turned on the light. It stopped. When I leaned down to check the drain, I heard a voice. Not from the hallway, from the sink. It was faint, childlike, singing a nursery rhyme out of tune. "Down it goes, down it flows, where the dark thing softly grows." I stumbled back, heart thudding in my chest. The drain was still now, but I noticed something wet, pooling under the door from the hallway. When I opened it, the hallway was empty, but the floor was soaked. It led all the way to the main shop of the gas station. I followed the trail, and there he was, the old man, slumped over the counter. His eyes were wide open. His mouth was too, stretched, so wide it tore his face as if something had clawed its way out of him. I should have run, but I needed my keys. I reached behind the counter, grabbed them, and just before I turned to bolt, I heard the gurgling again, and a voice, this time right behind me. "You opened the drain." I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat seized up like my body had already decided I was dead, but nothing touched me. I turned, slowly. The store behind me was empty. The air was heavy, thick with the smell of rot and something metallic. I backed away, holding my keys like they were a weapon. My hand trembled as I stepped over the soaked floor. Each step squished. I heard the voice again, whispering now, right inside my head. "You shouldn't have opened it." I ran. Outside, Baxter Hollow looked wrong. The moon was out, but the stars were gone. Not a single one in the sky. The houses across the street had gone dark. Shapes moved in the windows, but no lights ever flicked on. It was as if the whole town had fallen asleep, or something worse. I ran to my car. The door opened fine. The key turned. Nothing, not even a cough, just dead silence. And then I heard it again, gurgling, this time from the storm drain by the curb. I looked over. Something was crawling up, not climbing, slithering. It was a pale, rubbery limb, followed by another. Thin fingers with nails too long. A child's arm, then a face. Not a child's face, not really. It was like a wax dummy had melted, then molded itself into a grin. "Let's play," It rasped. I threw the door open and sprinted. Not down the main road. There was something waiting there. I felt it. Instead, I went behind the gas station, into the woods. I ran until I saw lights. A house, big and old, with a wraparound porch and a broken swing hanging by one chain. I pounded on the door. A woman answered. She looked at me with tired eyes and just said, "You've heard the pipes, haven't you?" I nodded, breathless. She let me in. Inside, it smelled like dust and cedar wood. Old books lined the walls. A fireplace burned, casting long shadows. She handed me a cup of tea. "I keep all my drains sealed," she said. "Tub, sink, toilet, every last one. You should too." "What is it?" I asked. She sat beside me. "It's not a what, it's them. They live beneath Baxter Hollow, always have, but they need sound to crawl out. Pipes carry more than water." Then she looked up, her eyes wide with fear. Drip. The sound came from her kitchen. Drip, drip, drip. We both stood. She hadn't used her sink in weeks, but now something was leaking. Down it flows, down it goes. We turned. The sink was open. She had forgotten to seal it that night. The gurgling started again, and the whispering, and something long and wet began sliding up from the drain. The woman, her name was Marla, froze when she saw it. A single wet hand, pale as candle wax, reaching out from the sink. The fingers were too long. They bent wrong, almost curious. I grabbed the nearest thing, an old iron candlestick, and slammed it down onto the sink. It screamed, not like a human. It sounded like a baby gasping through a clogged pipe, choking on water and laughing all at once. The hand jerked back. The gurgling grew louder. Then 2 more hands shot out and gripped the edge of the sink. "Help me seal it," Marla shouted. She ran to the cupboard and pulled out what looked like a plumbing cap, carved with symbols I couldn't begin to understand. I held the candlestick ready while she forced the thing down the drain. As soon as she slammed it shut, the pipes shook. The floor vibrated. Something thrashed beneath us. Marla lit a candle and placed it on the stove. "Now they know you," she said, turning to me, her voice shaking. "You heard them. You let them speak through the pipes. They'll follow you now." I stared at her, blood rushing in my ears. "How do I stop it?" "You can't. Not completely. But you can stay ahead of them." She handed me a small notebook. Inside were names, addresses, victims, all from Baxter Hollow. "They only come when someone listens, when someone opens the way. Never leave your sink open. Don't let water run at night. And never, ever sing their rhyme." I left before sunrise. I haven't stayed in the same town longer than 2 nights since then. But still, I hear it. In every motel sink, in the shower drains. That same voice. Down it flows, down it goes, through the dark, the hollow knows. I bought industrial stoppers for every pipe I use. I never sleep near running water, and when I hear it start to drip, I run, because now I know the truth. Baxter Hollow isn't just a place, it's everywhere the water flows. You ever drive through a town that feels wrong? Like the air itself doesn't want you there? That's what Black Hollow felt like. It wasn't on any map I had. I was just trying to cut across to Route 19, hoping to shave off a few hours on the way to visit my cousin. GPS rerouted me when the highway was closed off for construction. I didn't think twice when I saw the sign. "Welcome to Black Hollow, population 118. The town looked frozen in time. Quaint little houses, a diner with a flickering neon sign, and an old general store with dusty windows. But what struck me immediately was the silence. No kids, no dogs barking, no wind, just this unnatural hush, like the whole place was holding its breath. I pulled up in front of the diner. I hadn't eaten since the morning, and my stomach was turning on itself. The inside smelled like old grease and stale bread. A bell chimed above the door, but nobody came out. "Hello?" I called out. Nothing. I took a step inside. The floorboards groaned under my feet. That's when I saw the food, half-eaten plates of eggs and toast, coffee still steaming. A purse sat on one of the booths. A phone buzzed silently on another. It was like everyone had just vanished. And then, a noise, just behind me. A soft tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on the glass window outside. I spun around. No one was there. I tried the phone on the table. No signal. I opened the purse. The ID read, Linda Cross, resident, Black Hollow. There were receipts, lipstick, even a wrapped piece of candy. Normal stuff. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized how off it all was. Cars parked neatly, engines still warm, radios playing static. A swing in a front yard gently swaying with no wind, and not a single soul in sight. It was like the town had simply exhaled its people. That's when I heard it again. The tapping. Louder, more frantic. I walked outside and saw it. Every window down the block had bloody handprints on the inside, as if people were trying to get out. And the worst part, my car was gone. Panic clawed at my chest. I ran to where my car had been parked, an empty patch of gravel. No tire tracks, no sound of an engine fading into the distance. Just silence. Heavy, absolute. I stood there, heart pounding, until something new broke through that quiet. A melody, faint, eerie, a lullaby. It drifted through the air like smoke, fragile and haunting. I followed it, too stunned to question why. It was coming from the church at the end of Main Street, a crooked steeple half swallowed by vines. The front doors were slightly ajar. Inside, the pews were empty. Candles flickered along the altar, though no one had lit them. The hymn played from an old speaker in the corner, warped by time, slowing down and speeding up like a broken record. But there was something under the music, a whisper layered just beneath it. I stepped forward, then I saw it, the congregation. They weren't sitting. They were standing in the shadows of the apse, backs turned to me. Dozens of them, all still, all silent, as if waiting for something or someone. "Hello?" I said, barely audible. They turned in unison. Their faces weren't right. Mouths stretched open, eyes hollow, but weeping black. As one, they took a step forward. I ran, out the church, down the street, into the nearest house I could find. I slammed the door shut and locked it, breath ragged. Inside was worse. Photos lined the walls, black and white snapshots of families. But in every picture, the eyes had been scratched out. Red smears streaked across the glass frames. The TV played static, though it wasn't even plugged in. And then I heard it again. The lullaby. This time, it was coming from upstairs. I don't know what possessed me, but I climbed the staircase, one creaking step at a time. The door at the end of the hall stood open. Inside was a child's room. A spinning mobile danced above an empty crib. The lullaby played from a wind-up toy gently swaying beside it. And on the wall, scrawled in jagged black handwriting, "We're still here." I backed away from the message on the wall, but the floor groaned beneath my weight. Before I could turn, the wind-up toy on the crib stopped mid-note, and the room fell into suffocating silence. Then a whisper, so close I felt it brush the back of my neck. "Turn around." I bolted down the stairs. The photos on the walls now stared at me, eyes no longer scratched out, but following, wide and alert, like they'd come alive in the span of a minute. As I reached the front door, something moved in the corner of the room. A mirror. A tall, cracked mirror with a frame carved in symbols I didn't recognize. My reflection was there, but it wasn't doing what I was. It just stood still, staring at me with a grin that stretched unnaturally wide. Then, it blinked. Same black void. Empty, watching. The woman from the diner passed me, holding a tray of invisible food. "Such a lovely day," she said sweetly, her voice sounding like a cassette tape dragging. "Don't forget to smile." Suddenly, every person on the street stopped, turned, and smiled. Wide, identical, lip-splitting grins. My legs carried me to the forest at the town's edge, what looked like my only escape. As I ran between the trees, I didn't look back, even when I heard footsteps behind me. A lot of them. But the deeper I went, the quieter they became, until they stopped completely. I collapsed against a tree, gasping. The trees around me were still. The air was heavy. I pulled out my phone. Somehow it was working now. Bars, signal. I could see the name of the town pop up on my map. Braylock, population 0. But as I zoomed out, Something made my blood turn to ice. There were dozens of other red pins nearby, all towns, all marked population 0. And the forest behind me whispered. They all smiled too.